So welcome to the Power Automate demo session. So in this session, we will understand what is Power Automate and what are the types of flows we have in Power Automate. We will also discuss briefly and understand some of the templates using Power Automate solution. And at the end, we will also see practical examples using different workflows in the Power Automate solution. So let's get started. About the trainers. So myself, I have 9+ years of experience in corporate trainings. So I have conducted multiple sets of batches in the past, starting from Wipro. I've been with EY, and I also have experience in conducting training sessions for the institutes like Beeson Technologies and other institutes. And I handle MS Office applications, and I also train VBA programming as well as Microsoft Power Automate. So I handle diverse sets of participants, starting from the freshers who doesn't know anything about it and wanted to start their or build their career, and I will also handle a working professional who wants to enhance their skills. That's it about me. We have the course curriculum here. Basically, we have 4 sections here. Each section will talk about different topics about Power Automate. So you can see that in the first section we will learn and understand what is Power Automate, and in the second section we will look into the complex flows using Power Automate, and in the third section we will look into the different admin and co-authoring options available, and also we will understand data policies in Power Automate. At the end, we have a most important section, which is implementing robotic process automation using Power Automate, and we will also look into that as well. We might have access restrictions, but I will try to use or try to give you a trial access for every participant. I will create a user ID for that, and then I will allow them to practice it at their home. I will also assign some of the sample tasks so that they can practice and come up with the questions or Q&A in the next day. Today's agenda, we will discuss about Power Automate, and then we will also see what are the types of Power Automate workflows we have. Okay, let's start with the Power Automate introduction. So Microsoft Power Automate is one of the services from the Microsoft Power Platform. So this will allow user to automate their favorite applications and automate the data flow or workflow between their favorite applications. So you can automate sending notifications, you can automate synchronizing files, you can automate collecting data, you can also automate approval process. So we'll also see all of these things in examples in a live demo. And Power Automate allows user to connect between different applications, right? So it has a feature called connections. So connections will allow moving the data from one application to another application. So what is the market for this technology? These are the example markets currently using this Power Automate for most of their examples, but this is not a restriction. I have an experience. I've seen many people using this Power Automate in many of their companies and almost all of the companies, because this Power Automate will automatically comes with Office 365 platform. So what it means is basically when a company subscribe with the MS Office applications, you will also get this free Power Automate service. But then there is a limitation with some of the applications. If you need to also use every application, then you have to pay and subscribe for the premium option. So that's about the technology in the market. And then I will tell you most important and interesting thing about the Power Automate. It has hundreds of templates inbuilt. The moment you step into the Power Automate and log into the portal, you will see hundreds of templates. So you can use the templates and see what is the relevant template for your requirement. You can quickly update the solution and you can start using it. It's very as simple as that. And one more important and interesting thing is it is very easy to use design. You don't need to be a programmer. Anyone who has a basic knowledge in computer and the person who is already an IT professional, so anyone can use it. There is no restriction. So this is a very useful and visual design. You can drag and drop the options, and you can also use the dynamic screen to select the different data flow features. So we will also again see these things in the live example. And moving on to the next one, so we have automate advanced scenarios as well. We can also automate multi-step scenarios. So it doesn't necessarily that you have to automate only 2 applications. You can also connect more than 2 applications. This is something useful. So that means I can give you one example. You can capture the data from email and you can track it in Excel. At the same time, you can also track the same data in SharePoint as well. So there is no restrictions and limitations in Power Automate. We have co-authoring feature. We have co-authoring feature in Microsoft Flow. So what it means is basically in a big organizations, what happens if somebody create this solution and goes for a leave, and or maybe somebody fell sick and not available at a particular moment. So you can also share this with the particular or share this with your your colleagues. So if you're not available, your colleague can look into the solution and handle this or manage this. So we have option to publish to app source. So you need to talk to your IT team internally and get the approval to do this. This is also one useful feature. And most important thing about Power Automate is you can also automate workflows between these applications through your mobile as well. Particular Microsoft Flow is available in iOS as well as Android, so you can download through your mobile and you can also start using it, which is also an important thing. And we will also, learn this in live examples in the classes. We will also see how to automate flows using mobile as well. Types of flows. In the Power Automate itself, we have different types of flows, starting from automated flow, instant flow, and we have scheduled, UI, and business process flows. So what is automated flow? So automated flow is nothing but completely 100% automated. You don't have to do anything. You have to first set up the solution and leave it. It will do everything as per the designated events. So I'll give you one example. Let's say you have an event going to happen in the future. Let's say maybe after 2 days. So you can set the time in advance, like how many minutes in advance you wanted to trigger this automated workflow. You have to set up the time and then it will automatically trigger and do the actions and then it will give you the result. So this is one step of one type of flow. And second type of flow, which is instant flow, which is manually triggered flow. So as and when needed, you have to, use a button option to do this. That means, let's say if you wanted, you don't know when you wanted to, do this workflow. Let's say if you wanted to do it now, you can click the button, it will do it. Or maybe in the evening today, if you wanted, again, you can click on the button. So it will do it for you. So this is called instant flow. And third thing is, this is also, this is one of the most important flow in Power Automate, which is scheduled flow. Scheduled flow means what happens is I have a team members. I'll give you an example. I have team members of team of 10 members. And I wanted to remind them at a particular time every day at using Power Automate. So I can use a scheduled flow. So you can set the frequency and you can also set the interval as well. There's no restrictions again to do this. You can remind weekly once or maybe daily once or maybe daily twice or maybe monthly once. So it again depends on your requirement, which is also really useful for a bigger teams. If you wanted to send them reminders on a particular task, you can always do that. And I've seen this example. Many of the companies are using this because I can give you some examples. HR team will use these reminders to be sent to their bigger teams in submitting their timesheets. An example, we have UI flow. So in the UI flow, we have a robotic process automation setup. This is a newly launched by Microsoft. So we will also discuss about this in theoretically. I'll try to see if I can give you a practical example because we might have access issues. This is completely a premium one. And then we have business process flow also. So in the previous slide, I've explained that we can also automate multi-process applications. So that comes under business process flow. So these are the types of flow. Every type of flow is really important. You have to pick up the right one based on your requirement. Otherwise, you can always, create any flow from the scratch. That is also something I will tell you how to do it. Okay, this is interesting thing. Let's get started with the practicals. So first one is exercise. Create your first flow using Microsoft templates. So how you can automate any workflow using the templates. So let's see that how we can do it. So this is the Power Automate portal. So if not this, you can use powerautomate.com. It will take you there. This is the home screen. And then since I already logged in with my credentials, it is directly taking me to the home screen. If not, it will actually ask you to log in. If you don't have user details, it might ask you to register or sign up. You can always try it out. And then I will have to tell you the interface here, user interface. So it's the title and this is the app launcher. If you click on that, it will expand and it will show you all of the connected Microsoft Office 365 applications. So these are the applications we use mainly to connect and use our Power Automate solutions. Apart from this, we have a menu section here and then we have templates. So we can use all of these templates. You can look at the different templates it has already available and you can also search here. If you doesn't find the relevant template for your requirement, you can always go ahead and search it. If not, you can click on this all template link here. Otherwise, you can also use this option to go to the templates page. So here we have hundreds of templates. You can choose between different templates and you can quickly set up your solution. You don't need much time because this is a code free or low code solution. That's what Microsoft call this. So I will show you one quick example how to use this. I will simply send one reminder email. So this is something, get daily reminders. Once you click on that, it will will show my connections here. So these are the connections. It has two connections basically. One is the recurrence connection and second one is the mail connections. So I'll tell you why it needs two connections. The first connection, recurrence, is something that talks about the frequency of the reminder you wanted. You have to set how frequent you wanted this reminder, and then mail connection will actually use the mail Outlook or mail service to send reminders to you. So these are the two connections I'm using. At the bottom, if you look at it, is actually taking my name. This is my ID, and right hand side you should have a tick mark here. If it is not there, you have to click on this plus button because it should connect. I have to accept the policies, data policies. Once I accept it, it will connect my account with the mail service, and once that is done, it will automatically open the home screen of this particular Power Automate solution, and then it actually expanded view. This is the expanded view. You can actually collapse it, so you can expand it, and then you can look at the frequency first. If you click this drop down, it has different types of frequencies. So it again depends on your requirement. Like if you wanted to automate monthly, you have to select month. If you wanted to automate this weekly ones, you have to select this. If you wanted to automate daily, you have to select, and then this is interval. So what is an interval? By default it is 1. Let's say if I put 5, so what it means is basically you want it 5 times. That means 5 times in a day. Frequency is a day, interval is 5. That means you wanted 5 reminders in a day. If you don't want 5 reminders, you will always keep 1. You can keep as it is. And then moving on to the main connection, which is the send email connection. So here in the to address, you have to enter the email address, or you can if in the organizations, what happens generally, they will have distribution lists. Okay, they will directly put that distribution list here. What happens every day, once this reminder will go to the complete team, right, if it is a distribution list. But in this case, I have a test user, so this is the test user I have in a different browser in a Fox. So the test user is email address is test user itself, so I will use that to send a notification. That means I am assuming that user as my team member, so I'm just typing it. The moment I type it, it will actually suggest what all the users having this name in your particular organization. So my organization is a sample organization, mindmajix.onmicrosoft.com. In your organization, your domain might be different, so I will select test user 1, and then I can put my subject. So see, by default this is already filled my subject automatically, saying that daily reminder from Microsoft Flow. But if you wanted, you can modify it, daily Microsoft, for the example task. You can always edit as per your requirement again. So again, body, I think, is finish the task as it is. Today is the deadline to complete it. So whatever the message might be you wanted, you can always enter it. Once you're done with that, there is a save and flow check, and then test options. 3 buttons are there. So flow checker is one important debugging thing in the programming languages. Generally what happens, we use the debug to see if there is any issue in the solutions. So in this we have a flow checker. This will automatically debug the solution, and it will trigger if there is any error. So if once you click on that, there is 2 types of flow checks again. One is errors and second one is warnings. So once you expand it, it says 0. That means your solution is perfectly fine. There's no issues. If there is no issues, then you can save it. So once you save it, you are good to test it. So since I wanted to test this immediately, so I don't want to keep it daily, I will just keep it minute, and I will keep it 1 itself, and then I will test it. So let's see what happens. Once I click on the test button, again you will have 2 options. One is I'll perform the trigger action now. Since I have created this Power Automate solution now itself, you have to use the first option. But if the solution is already created some time ago, then you have to use this. See, what best part with Microsoft Power Automate is it's already went successful. That means the moment I selected 1 minute here, it already sent one reminder. So you can see that. See, I already have one email. This is how it looks like. Hi team, please finish the task. So every message exactly same. And at the end, it will also show that Srihari used Power Automate to send this notification, which is fine. It comes from Microsoft's PowerApps.com. So this is the basic notification solution using Power Automate. And then I will again get one more, because I said 1 minute. That means every 1 minute I want this reminder. So that's what I set in the solution. So I'll keep getting every reminder in every 1 minute, so that I don't have to test it. I can go back. That's okay. And in this view, you can also see the history. So it ran 1 minute ago, and it will run once again, because I set as okay. I changed it back to daily, so I will put it 1 minute, then save it. Let's see what happens now. So every 1 minute I should keep getting the reminders. That is a very good thing with Power Automate. So that means it will calculate the time, everything it will take care of. We don't need to take care of the time as well. So this window shows all of your flows. So if I have 5 solutions, it will show all of my Power Automate solutions list here. So since I have only created one, it is showing one here. See, there is one more triggered now. So 29 seconds ago, it triggered one more. So I should have received one more. See, there you go. So that's a very interesting thing with the Power Automate. You don't have to sit and do, manually. You don't have to do any repetitive tasks in your organization. You can actually automate all of these things. That's it about a quick demo using a template. Certifications options available from MindMajix. I will quickly talk about this thing. So once you're done with the course, MindMajix will provide Power Automate Professional certification. Once you're done with all of the sections and once you attend all of the classes and once you finish the assignments, you will be getting the certificate. And then MindMajix will assist you register and complete the certification. So if you have any assistance in between, if you need any help in terms of working with the trial version or working with the assignments, you can always come up. It has a support center as well. You can also call them always, and you can also reach out to the trainer in the next class. You can ask questions, so trainer will be always happy to questions or issues. So that is one important thing. So next we will also demonstrate sample projects. So I will first demonstrate track form responses on SharePoint. So what is forms here? I have to also quickly talk about forms here. So forms means it will allow users to send their feedback. Example, I'm telling feedback responses or maybe ratings. So all these things will have a link. We will allow users to send their feedbacks. We will do a Power Automate solution for this to track the responses automatically. That means you don't want a user to sit and look at all of the responses, copy it and then paste it. You don't want to do that. In the big organizations, what happens? These responses will be huge. If you want a user to sit and do it, then it will take so many days. But if you automate using Power Automate solution, then you can do it very quickly without having to do anything. So let's see how we can do it. Okay. So for this case, I don't use the templates. I will build the solution from the scratch. That's how you will able to build it. So I should have the forms here because I have a sample form already created. So I will have to, if user response using this form, I think it is actually redirecting it. Okay, fine. Let me load it. Just to save the time, I already created the form. So if user responds to this form, let's say if they respond, if they give any answer to it, and then if they select the rating, and then the moment they submit it, okay, how do you track the responses to the SharePoint? Okay, so let's create a solution for that. I have the SharePoint site also already available. I already created the headers just to save some time. And what I will do now, I will go to Power Automate again. I will go to new. Okay. I can again create from the templates. I can create from the different types. But what I will do here, I wanted to create from the scratch. So I don't use this. will have an option. I have an option to click on the create button. So once you click on that, so again it will ask you to select what is the type of your automate, right? So you have to decide what type of automate you are going to do now. So my automate is completely triggered based on the event. What is an event? I told you, as I already told you, event means when a user is submitted, okay, that will become an event because you don't know when a particular user will submit it. It's not in your hands. So when some user is sitting in some different location and then he submits it, that's when the trigger will flow, right? So you have to use the automated flow now. I have to click on that. I'll have to give a name to my flow. So I will say form responses. Done. Then you have to choose your flow trigger. So what is my trigger here? My trigger is my form application, right? So my form application is when a new response is submitted. So this is what I have to select. And it doesn't necessary that you have to select only this. It again depends, since my application, my current requirement is to record the responses from the form application. So this is forms, right? So I wanted to record from this Microsoft responses to SharePoint. So I have to select when a new response is submitted from the user. I have to select this as a trigger. then click on create. Again, you don't necessarily need to select this. You can always skip this part as well. You can directly build everything from the scratch. I will also show you that. So here you have to select the connector here. What is the connector? Your first connector is always your Microsoft Forms, because that's where you wanted to track your responses. So I can select this directly, or I can, if you do not find your required apps in this particular box, you can always search it, forms, and then enter. The moment you click enter, it will actually show you at the top. Click on that. So once you click on that, it will actually show you what all its relevant triggers. Here my trigger is, I wanted to record the responses. So you have to use when a new response is submitted by the user. So you click on that. Once you click on that, I have to pick up the form name. So use the drop down. So I have two forms here. You have to select the right form properly. You have to be very careful with this, because when you work with the different big organizations, you might have 100 forms once you click on this drop down. So you have to name the forms properly, and then you have to select the relevant one. So I have to go back to my Microsoft Forms and see what is the name here. So the name is feedback form number 2. So I have to select the same one. So I will select it. So once I select it, this is done. I have to click next step. So once I click on next step, I have to select forms again. I'll tell you why I have to select forms again. Once I select it, so in the first connector, when you selected designated event as when a new response is submitted, it automatically is suggesting that I have to use this get response trigger. So what it means is, basically in the first connection, I am selecting this form. Okay. And then I am saying that this is a trigger. When a new response is submitted from the user, I wanted which form I wanted to trigger. I want to trigger for this form. And for this form, what I wanted to do, I wanted to get the details. Whatever the response is by the user, I wanted to get those details. Again, for this, I have to select the form, the respective form name. You have to select it. If you don't select, what happens? See, if you keep it blank, at the right hand side, flow checker is throwing an error. So this is always helps you that these two are the required fields. So you have to select it. So expand it again. So these two are the mandatory fields. You can also see the star here for both of these things. So you have to select. Selecting it again, and response ID. So how do you bring out the response ID? So response ID, the moment you have to bring the response ID using the dynamic content. The moment you click here, it will actually take you through the dynamic content and the expression. So expressions we will discuss later. This will something to do with the variables, strings, that means appending something with some other strings. So this is something we will discuss later. So dynamic content is more useful. Okay, I'll tell you why you have to select this. So here response ID, how do you get the response ID? When a user is submitted, right? So here user is submitted. In this connection, you already selected the form. So response ID, you have to pick up from the first trigger. So this, what is the trigger name? When a new response is submitted is a trigger name. And you have to choose that. See here, when a new response is submitted, you have to always match this with this and then select the response ID. Otherwise, sometimes what happens when you are working with 10 applications, if your flow is very bigger and if you select something else, then your flow will work, but it will throw you a different information. That means it will capture wrong information. So you don't want that to happen. So you have to be careful. Otherwise, what I will suggest is click on this, rename it. Okay, you can always rename this as per your requirement. So trigger, right? Trigger number 1. Okay, in the brackets also you can put when user submit response. Close it. Done. Now see what happens. The moment I changed my name, see, this is what it is showing here. So that means response ID is relevant to the first trigger. So I have to select this. So now we are done with that. So once the response ID is generated, okay, what you wanted? You wanted to store these response details in the SharePoint, right? So you have to create one more step. Here I don't have any SharePoint here, so you have to search it. SharePoint and then click enter. Then you have to select the app. Click on that. See, what this is the best part of Power Automate. You can do so many things. It's not that you should only add data or create data in the SharePoint site. You can do so many things. You can add attachment, approvals, okay, checking out copy files. You can also, collect data. So many things are get attachments. So many things are there. We will discuss everything in the classes. So now in this requirement, I have to create an item, right? So I have to choose that, see, create item. So why create item? SharePoint uses this term called create item. I will show you here. So this is a SharePoint and I have a sample list. The name itself is sample list. I have the email address and I wanted to record the form responses in this sample list. So I have to create each and every item here using the Power Automate. So I will choose the create item connection. So once you choose this connection, you have to select the site address. So my site address is this, which is mindmajix.sharepoint.com, and then the name of my site itself, sample site. I'll have to select that. Again, as I told you, you have to be very careful. In a bigger organizations, you will have many SharePoint lists. You have to select the right one. If you select wrong one, what happens? This data will replace a different data. Then you will be in a trouble. You have to be very careful when you're automating. So that's why I suggest my students to, testing is very important in Power Automate. Not only Power Automate, any programming language, in any automatic solution, you have to, test solutions multiple times before going live, right? Yeah. So select this, and then in the list is also a sample list. That's what the name I used here. The sample list is the name. So I have to select the same thing here. So once I select it, it is automatically showing the columns here. So what are the columns I have here? One is serial number, email, do you find this useful? So all of these things will reflect here automatically. Okay, now you have to choose what connection you want, what data you wanted to store in a particular column. So title you wanted to, we generally use the title as a serial number. So I use the response ID, which is unique ID. So what it means is basically if a user submits a response, first it will copy that as number one, and if second user sends a response, it will take that as a number two. So automatically it will take the unique number. So you don't have to worry about that. You can directly select the response ID here, and then email. So email you have to take the responder's email. That means whoever responds using that particular form, it will capture that particular email address and it will store. And then do you find this automation useful? So same thing you have to match here. So this is actually a question. Okay. So do you find this automation useful means if user select yes and then submit it, you will get yes here. And if the user submits no, then you will get no here. So this is a dynamic thing. So you have to select this. And again, we don't know what user will respond. You have to select the relevant dynamic fields here. And then how do you rate? Select the same one here, and then name I will put it as submission time. It will also capture when, at what time and what date a user has submitted this response. You can also do that. And once you're done with all of these things, you can collapse it, and then you have to see if there is any errors and warnings. Since it is 0, you can save it. Okay, it is saved here. You can go back, and then you can see how this history of this flow works. Now what I will do, I'll quickly copy this form link, and then I myself as a user, I will send a response and see how this automation works. Now I will select my response here. So I already selected. Now the moment I click on submit, my Power Automate should trigger automatically, okay, based on the connections we created, and then it should capture the response details from this form application, and then it should store these details into the SharePoint, right? That's what it should happen. Now let's click on the submit and then see what happens. We're done with submission. So go to the forms and see if it is triggered or not. Refresh it. See, it triggered. 9 seconds ago it triggered. Now you should find this response in the SharePoint. Now go to the SharePoint and then see if the data is captured or not. See, There you go. You got the serial number, you got the email address, you got the response. Do you find it useful? You got the rating in the number as well. So this is what a Power Automate is all about. It's very useful. And in a bigger example, in a bigger organizations, what happens? There will be hundreds of users always keep on sending the responses using the forms. So they don't have to track these manually. Every response will come and sit here automatically. Yeah. And the end of a week or a month, the user, whoever wants to monitor this particular list, sample list in this SharePoint, they can directly take out the report, which is very useful. So this is one good example, a demonstration of the so we created everything from the scratch. It's very useful and very easy. Now we are done with track responses from the SharePoint. Now let's see how we can create approval process. Right, this is approval process is little advanced. We also call this as a business flow. So we will also see conditions here. Let's say if approver approves it, what you wanted to do. If approver rejects it, what you wanted to. So these types of conditional arguments also you can use using the Power Automate. So let's look into that now. I will come back to my Power Automate again. So what I will do now, I'll go to my flows. Now you have two flows. The first one is something I created today itself, 18 minutes ago, how to send daily reminders to your team members. And then second one, how to track the responses automatically, right? Now I will start creating one more. I will again create from the scratch itself. I'll skip it. I will directly jump into the search connectors and triggers. So what you wanted now? I wanted to initiate an approval process, right? So why an approval process is really important. So let's say you have received this form response. I'll take this as an example again for this. So if you have received responses from the user, okay. If somebody by mistakenly set the responses like this, I'll show it here, or I can use submit and the response. Okay. By mistakenly user said it is not useful, but he rated as 5. So what it means? There is a conflict here, right? So we can understand that user might either he might have incorrectly selected this in this particular question, or he might have indirectly rated top or 5 stars by mistakenly, because he cannot say that this is not useful and then give 5 star, right? This is very basic and self-explanatory. So in these types of conflict cases, you wanted to send every responses to your manager or your director and see if it is okay for approval or not. So in these cases, you can create approval process. I will also show you how to do with the same example. So how to create it. Okay. So when there is a item created in the SharePoint, okay, here what we used the second flow trigger as when there is a form response submitted by the user. So we used when there is a form response submitted by the user as a trigger for this example. But now, since you don't want to, work with the forms, you can directly use the site itself. I'll use SharePoint as the trigger now. So how do you do it? Come here. I can also use form response as the trigger, but I wanted to show you almost every connection as possible in the short session. So I'll use SharePoint as my trigger. So when an item is created, so this is what I wanted, because whenever there is a response from the user in the forms and then that gets tracked here automatically. So I wanted to send an automated approval process, right? So I wanted to use when an item is created as a trigger. Okay, here you have to select your site again. You have to be very careful. And the list name. My list name in the site is a sample list. You can see the title here. I will select the same thing. In the next step, I will have to create the approval process. So when there is an item is created in the SharePoint, what I want to do, I want to initiate an approval process. So search for approval and hit enter. You can see so many options. Hit the actions. In the actions, you will see the different options here. These are not triggers, remember. So you wanted actions now. So approvals, all approval connections comes under actions. All the events comes under triggers. That is something you have to keep in your mind. So I'll have to, start and wait for an approval. So what it means is basically you wanted to start an approval process and you also wanted to wait for the response from the manager. So then in that case you have to use it. But if you only wanted to create an approval process and separately, approval process separately and then wait for the response separately, you have to use the different options. But I will directly go ahead with this because it will serve both the purposes. What type of approval I wanted? I wanted to use approval and reject. So both the options I wanted to either approver can approve it or he can reject it. So two options. Title. So in the title is equally treated like a subject. So what I wanted is here I have to mention, please review. Please review this response. I will put the ID here because this ID is again unique. I will put that and then assign to. So I will assign this to, I can assign this to my manager in my organization, but I will treat test user at mindmajix.com is my manager as a sample. So in your organization, you have to, type your manager's name there. So you will get your manager name in the drop down. You have to select it. And then I can mention the things in detail. You have to type your manager name. Please check the rating. What is the rating the user had given? This is, so from this column you have to pick up. So dynamically pick up. So this is dynamic, guys. We don't know what's the number. The rating number might be 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever it is. It will automatically pick up from the SharePoint directly. So this is what. So here it will pick up 4. Okay, from the column, how do you rate? So in this column we have 4. It will pick up from there. And then rating. Please check the rating and also response. So what's the response? The response is this. Rating is this in this column and the response is this. Find it useful or not, right? And also useful or not response is this and approve it. And regards, you put your name. And if you have any links, you can add it. If you don't have, you can leave it blank, no issues. Item description also, if you have it. If you have anything, you can add it. If you don't have, you can always leave it. And response username or email address. See, I have the email address also of the user who responded to this feedback. So I can also use that if you wanted. So that's it. I'm done. So once you're done with this step, you have to also wait for the approval, right? So what you have to do, you have to connect one more thing here, and I will have to add condition. So I can type it by condition because I might receive two types of responses from my manager. My manager might approve it. One second response, he might reject it. So I have to use condition here. Select this. So once you click on the condition, it will expand and give me two options here. If yes means approve it, no means reject it. So here I have to choose response here. Type response or not here. Type your response. So from which connection you should get the response? Now you will get the response from this connection. Okay, not from the SharePoint, remember, because SharePoint you're not getting anything. SharePoint you are getting the item details, the feedback details, and you are storing that item details in this start and wait for an approval, and then you're sending it to the manager, right? So from this purple box, the start and wait for an approval connection, you should get the response. So you have to use the same to track the response. See, you have to use the same trigger action point. You have to search for response comment. Use response comment. If my response comment is equals to approve, then I wanted to send an email to to whoever the user who sends it. So I will open Office 365 email. Here I have to choose send an email. Here I can again use the dynamic content itself. I will use the email from the SharePoint now. Because why SharePoint? Because in the SharePoint we already tracked the user whoever responds it. So I'm sending this to the same user. Or I can send it to my whoever initiates this. I can also do that. Whoever modifies or whoever creates this, which is also fine. Or I can send it to manual. I can also enter an email address manually. Enter the email address. You can specify the subject, approval status. You can also put the ID here just to keep the uniqueness, because this approval process might send 10 emails daily. So you should have a specific ID to differentiate each email. And then I will put as feedback approval status. I can add the response summary. I can add the response summary here. And then put regards, ending note. Or I can put MindMajix company itself. That's it. So you're done with one part here. If it is approved, if the response is matching with approved, then you wanted to send one email saying that this is approved. And if it is not approved also, you wanted to send one more notification, right? In that case, you have to open one more action here and email. I will use the same interest, whatever I added. See, it is I think my connection has issues, that's why it didn't trigger earlier. Now it is suggesting that it's one of your team member itself. Let's see if I type it again. Yeah, I'm kind of getting it. So subject is same. I just add approval ID. Yeah. Then body will also remain same. Because you don't have to do anything. The response summary will take care of everything. Because even if it is approved, it will show it as approved in the response summary dynamic field. And if it is rejected, it will also show the same thing. So let's save it now. And before that, as having said that, you have to also check if the flow has any errors. If no errors, save it. Yeah, once you're done with that, you can directly send a form response now. So I will send a form response now. I will use this conflict again as an example. I'll say, do the find this useful question as no, but I will give a best rating. I will submit it. It's submitted. So it should actually, trigger true flows now. One, it should automatically update my SharePoint here. So let's see what happens. See, you got it. This is the response. It is updated automatically. So the rating is higher, but the response, if the user is happy or not, the response is no. And then let's also see the second flow, if it is triggered or not. I have to refresh it. See, 0 seconds ago, it is already running. So let's see, how do I get my approval? See, my email is filled with so many responses because I left my first flow whatever we created open. So this is also important thing, guys. If you don't want to keep your flow open, what you have to do, you have to go to your my flows, and you have this option, more commands, click on this, and you might have spent so much of time to create this, so don't delete it. If you don't require, you can temporarily turn off it. So see, you can see that it is very light in color, that means this is turned off. So now go back to the flow and then check. See, I got my approval automatically. So this is how you will initiate approval process. See, I can see that please review, and I can also see that please check the rating is 5 but the user response is no, and approve it. So user can decide either to approve it or reject it. So since we have a conflict here, so I will reject it. So once I reject it, so see what happens. What is the response I will be getting automatically again. And if you go back to your flow is still running because it is actually waiting for user to approve it, right? See, this is still running because it is not yet finished, because it is waiting for user to approve it or reject it. Once it gets the response and then sends the approval status to the user, then it will finish. So let's see what happens. So now I will go to my email address now. It's still running. I can refresh. Yeah, it is still running. Okay, it's still running. Yeah, sometimes it might take 1 or 2 minutes longer based on the connections and different conditions it has within the solution. So you will be getting a report at the end, so saying that this particular form response is either rejected or not. So that something you will be getting. So this is an example I tested earlier. So this is how you will get the summary: approver name and his email address and response. Response is approved. Earlier I approved it. That's what the response I have received, and then requested. So time, everything will be there. So this is something you will be able to do. So that's about projects we demonstrated. Now lab setup. So MindMajix will also help you set up the lab. These are the basic requirements to use this Power Automate web application. So you should have at least 4 GB of RAM and any Windows operating system, 50 GB hard disk, which will serve and allow you to work on this too. And apart from this, as I mentioned, I will be able to provide a different set of test email addresses along with the trail access to Microsoft 365 platform. So whatever the topic we discuss in the class, you will be able to practice it, and then you can come up with questions and question and answer session, and the next day immediately we will answer, and then we will go to the next topic. And we will also provide session videos, documents, useful references, and sample resume preparation guidance. So we will also provide resume preparation and guidance as well, and then MindMajix will also give you proper professional resume samples so that it will help you part of on-job assistance. Yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask me. Any questions regarding the course timings, resource allocation, anything, reach out to the MindMajix email address. So you can also call them here. And we also request every participant to give the feedback. This is always helps us to improve our delivery and the quality in the further trainings. So that's it. Thanks.